Hi, I'm Dr. Belinda Small. Opening up our future in a world where there is no one right answer. How to think critically and utilize it as a parent, a teacher, and a principal. I'm Dr. Belinda Small. I'm happy to be here with you today. And as we talk, I want you to be thinking about your personal situation and phase of life and how you might help a young child who's got the world at their disposal crack open their mind to propel themselves forward to a better future world. We face a lot of change these days. Over the past several years, as a Greek philosopher once said, the only thing that stays the same is change. And this visual represents change, 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 change everywhere in our life, rushing through what seems to now become a bottleneck. Sometimes we don't know how to respond to change that's coming that fast at us. And it seems chaotic, unsystematic. How do we open our minds to move into the future with continuous improvement in mind? Well, I've been exposed to 3 TOC thinking tools that have helped me in many different scenarios that I'm going to share with you today. And I want you to think about your own life and sphere of influence and how you might help another person unleash their potential. I thought this is a cute cartoon here, and it says, "What's the opposite of bottleneck?" And the scholar responds, aid, assistance, opening, help. And that's what the TOC tools seem to do. In fact, the TOC tools have been used in education in over 20 countries, in 6 continents, impacting over 8 million and counting children, teaching them how to think critically for themselves and help others unlock new solutions and meet unprecedented goals and targets. Now, we all have many roles that we play every single day. So during this presentation, I don't want you to think that I have all the right answers or that I'm in the right positions at the right time, because as time evolves, I've played and you have too multiple dimensions in this world. For example, we all came into this world as a child and we had a parent, and sometimes then we become the parent and have a sphere of influence over our own children. And sometimes we can influence siblings, co-workers. Sometimes we are the employee or the employer that has a sphere of influence. We are at times leaders or supervisors, sometimes of our own life with our own spouse or significant other. We play many roles during our lives. And as we talk today, think about those roles and how some of these tools might be helpful to you in springboarding new ideas to help others. Here's a representation of a lot of hats that I wear. Right now, in particular, I am a parent of 2 adult children. I'm a leader of my middle school, grades 6 through 8. I am an employee of a large district in the state of Florida. I'm a spouse to my husband, Chris, and I also still consider myself a teacher. I've been an educator for 30 years now. How many hats are you wearing? You can probably count them, maybe on 2 hands. Now, here are the 3 tools or rings that I've hung on to throughout the 30 years to help me in sticky situations when change seems to be happening so fast or the world seems chaotic. I just ground myself in 3 systematic tools that give me confidence that I can break through and reach a new elevation or process for continued improvement. Those are the cloud, the ambitious target, and the branch. Now, this is a visual representation from Kathy Sirkin, CEO of our TOC for education. And I like this picture because it puts a visual to the 3 tools, one being the cloud. It's represented in blue. These boxes are literally like a template that you write in. You verbalize your thoughts based on logic and often intuition to represent a problem and come to a solution analyzing multiple perspectives. The branch represented in gold here or brown is you see a stem and leaf system. These are represented in the gold boxes here, again representing words that are placed in here and verbalized in your thought process. The ambitious target tree is represented in green. You can see that there's a ladder with rungs of the ladder leading up the tree to new heights, reaching targets you never thought possible. And over here in the green represents boxes that are built with your words or others' words inside, leading a plan to achieve a goal. The cloud resolves internal and external conflicts without compromising important needs. The branch identifies the consequences of decisions and actions that can lead to either negative outcomes and how to convert them to positive ones. And the ambitious target enables users to create an effective plan by overcoming obstacles that block the attainment of a goal. I'm going to show you today a few examples of all 3 of these tools in different aspects of my life as I've grown to become who I am today. In sharing, I hope that you can take away an idea or a springboard to another idea on how you might can use it in your life's situation. The first example is one I first had with my spouse. Have you ever wanted to move, but your husband, wife, or partner did not want to move? Well, this happened to me and Chris in our relationship. I wanted to move closer to the coast. And you can see in the upper representation of the cloud, this is representing my perspective. The bottom half, his perspective. Our tension was here between our wants. I wanted to move closer to the coast, and he did not want to move. I knew I wanted to be close to coastal recreation like boating, lots of restaurants, nightlife. And I thought that would make me happy. On the other hand, when we were in a disagreement, I had difficulty understanding his perspective, only to find out by using the tool that the need that he was trying to protect by not moving close to the coast was this. He needed to keep a safe distance from his in-laws, which were my parents, because he thought it might take away our independence as a married couple. So we both wanted to be happy, and we worked through this process through these tools, and I was able to come up with a solution that we were going to stay where we were because we were only 30 minutes from the coast, and we bought a boat so that we could enjoy all the coastal recreation that life had to offer nearby and keep a safe distance from his in-laws, my parents. So we still enjoy visiting with them, but we are about 30 minutes away and enjoy a lot of boating. Now, the next slide I would like to show you is one that happened when I became a mom. So I was married to my husband and working as a teacher. I was an employee. And then 9 or 10 years later, I became a mom. So I was conflicted. In this example, the conflict cloud is between me in the mindset of being an employee and me being a mom or the parent. So I was battling with the conflict over here. I wanted to reduce my work. At the same time, I did not want to work. And the good reason for reducing my work was to be with my kids more. And I thought this would make me a happy parent, of course. But on the other hand, I did not want to work at all because I needed to have hours that aligned to my kids. Because the situation was this: I was already working at a school, but I was going to have to put my children in school daycare for 3 hours before they started their first period class if I continued to work where I had always worked. My first proposal was to ask the principal if I could work half days. She didn't buy into that, which led me to another possible solution that I never considered until I had kind of mapped out my ideas in this format. And it was to accept a job at my children's school where I could have the same hours as they had and be off the same hours they were off. It worked into a beautiful long 5-6 years where I got to attend plays with them, kiss their boo-boos because we worked in the same school, and see to all of their needs and maintain my job and my financial stability. It was a win-win situation. Now, when you use the tools, I learned that I have to check logic. I have to sometimes wait for others to come up with their verbalization that may assist me in helping unlock keys to aligned solutions. And some of those words include phrases like, in order to get what I need, I must, because, and what follows after the words because is often very, very revealing in what we call assumptions. Working out the system using the TOC tools helps us clarify what assumptions we are making. This takes a lot of pressure off once we have a breakthrough like this. And you'll see as you learn and work through tools how important these phrases are. Now, at a middle school I worked at in 1993, I had a student, this is him a little bit older, a representation of him as he was older, but he was a big kid and he was a 7th grader and he was having a lot of trouble with all of his teachers disrupting everyone. It was awful. Every day, every class period, all the teachers that had him tried everything, including me, calling home, scolding him, sending him to the office, sometimes sending him to some other teacher's room, see if they could help. Nothing seemed to work. We seemed hopeless. As teachers, we didn't understand this student, and we didn't get that he didn't understand, and obviously he didn't care about getting an education, or at least we thought. And one day, after being exposed to the TOC tools, I remembered a couple of words at the TOC meeting. So this defiant student was in my class, and an amazing couple of events occurred. I'm going to show you a picture of him through his own words. He came into my class disrupting. And over here, you can see his handwriting on the left. Down at the bottom, you may or may not can read it, but Kathy Sirkin has transposed it for us over on the right in nice typewritten language. But he started making noises that were loud and gross. And I asked him to move to the back of the room, and I brought along with me a sheet of paper. And we talked about the problem is he makes noises in class. And I asked him, if you make noises in class, then what happens? And you can see he says, I get mad. And then I said, if you make noises in class, then what else happens? And he wrote, the teacher gets mad. And then I said, if I make noises in class, then what else happens? And he said, other students get mad. And boy, that was the truth. Well, I went back to his first idea right here, where he says, if I make noises in class, then I get mad. And then I said, if you get mad, then what happens? And he said, I don't listen. If I don't listen, then I don't do assignments. And if I don't do assignments, I get an F. Along this time when he was writing this, I had to go attend to the rest of the class, and so he finished it on his own. If I get an F, then I fail the class. If I fail the class, I am furious. And then he drew this monster. And so I asked him, where on this branch did everything start going negative or wrong? And he drew a line down here. I make noises in class. So I asked him to come up with a few different solutions and pick one. It didn't matter to me which one he picked, just so long as it burst that bubble down at the bottom. So he said he was the problem, and his solution was, I will try not to disrupt the class. Amazingly, the results were this. He had been sent up 40 times to the office in the first 6 months of school. In the next semester, he had 0 write-ups and stopped making noises in class. That was a win. That was one of my first wins as in my role as a teacher, trying to use a tool with someone else besides myself. So I share that because if you think about your role, maybe you're a teacher and you could use this type of, branch with students, or you may be thinking, I could use this with some of my own children, or maybe you have a different role in life, but you're thinking, this might work in this situation I've been dealing with for a while. Just a thought. keep it back here. And I'm going to share a few other things with you. One of the key things that we need to do while we work with this is be curious and wait. There are two important words in dealing with the branch, and they are the word if. If, you heard me say that several times, right? If such and such happens, then, and wait. You heard me say that in that last scenario a couple of different times. If, then, and if, what else might happen? So I don't have the answers. I'm allowing time for the student to process and think and verbalize and then place those words on his map or in his tool or on his template. This tool can also be helped to generate some solutions. This is a map I used with students in my classroom. Again, another attempt to use it with someone else. And we were analyzing some literature. Now, you can see that there's a top side of the cloud and a bottom side, which represents two perspectives. I love this because I think this shows signs of a mature mind when students can start thinking about not just themselves, but that there are two sides to every conflict, at least. So this student wrote by the name, the parents owned one side of the problem. Their son, Byron, owned the second side of the problem. And this student analyzed the problem from the literature as being the parents wanted their son to listen to obey, but the son did not want to listen to the parent. And through the process of the cloud thinking tool, she decided that the good reason that the parents wanted the son to listen and obey is so that they could have a civilized son. They needed to teach him a lesson. On the flip side, when the student started thinking about the good reason the son might want to disobey, she thought he was trying to protect his independence and his freedom to do what he wanted to do, which was a great analysis. And what this began to do is open up some dialogue in the classroom, because you can see the implications that this might not just be about two characters in a book. There are implications to the bigger life connection. This could be a real conflict between a parent and a child. So we worked through the process, and it was a very rich and engaging discussion because it leads and motivates students to start thinking about their own personal situations and how things can come to be sometimes. But it's only through looking at multiple perspectives. And that's the beauty of this tool. Now, in the next scenario, I wanted students to be exposed to a big goal and teach them how to break it down or deconstruct it enough to make it manageable. So in this example, I know this writing is a little light, but I'm going to read it to you so that you understand the perspective of some students. It says that her ambitious target, which is her goal, is to finish a well-done social studies report. Now, as part of the process from the TOC tool, it is to list the obstacles. So she thought about it, and all of these are her words, her thoughts, her handwriting, and here's the list. What stands in her way of finishing a well-done social studies report is her video games. This homework and video games interferes with her time. Her after-school activities, softball, interferes with getting her work done. She doesn't know what to look up. Number 4, she's not very good at writing. Number 5, she says that she has trouble getting into it. Number 6, she never gets started. 7, she's got better things to do. 8, the computer is always taken. 9, she ran out of supplies. And 10, she's out of resources. Now, you can see below that she wrote some squiggly lines, and the second section now says stepping stones. So the tool teaches students how to think critically to overcome the obstacles. For example, the first one listed is put videos away for a couple of days. Make up times for work, breaks, and rewards. Bring work with you to do during downtime. Ask a coach to cooperate with time. Do it on weekends. And she goes on. She has 4 or 5 more that overcome the list at the top. And then you see numbers. 6, 5, 7, 8, 9, 2, 3, 4, 1. That's the order she decided she needed to put forth as a stepping stone to reach the ladder. Remember the visual of the ambitious target tree? You go up the rings of the ladder to achieve the goal. This is her ladder. She was very, very proud of herself. She feels empowered. It is a simple process that this child can take with her for the rest of her life and do with any target or goal that she wants to accomplish. Now, using the tools is a practice. It's a discipline. And so with my students, I was practicing this more and more because I wanted it to become a habit. So we did other scenarios. I found an informational article that was dealing with a lawsuit between the New York University and another organization. The university was trying to build a law school, but it was going to tear down or cause damage to a historical landmark by an American author, Edgar Allan Poe. He lived in a townhome where the law school was going to be built in New York City. So we used an article to exercise our practice in critical thinking, to be disciplined, and to practice. It was really an interesting project because we focused on teaching students how to come up with the assumptions that they're making or that one side is making who is opposed to another side, and what assumptions is the other side making when the two are in conflict. For example, in this scenario, the 7th grade students said in order to use the space wisely, meaning the New York University had a little bit of space to expand the law school, and they wanted to use the space wisely. So they said, well, the good reason is because New York City University owns the land and has free will and rights to do with what they want. Also, building a law school will increase the economy, students said. Now, they looked at the other side of the problem, which was the side of protesters who wanted to preserve the historical landmark that was about to be destroyed. And the students came up with, on the other hand, in order to use the space wisely, protesters must preserve the landmark because, and they said, generations to come can learn from Edgar Allan Poe's life. The home promotes scholarly inspiration. The home will be a historical tourism attraction, and the home would honor his life's work. We did this collectively as a whole group, and so all the students were participating together to brainstorm these ideas. In the next step, we took some of the assumptions and tried to come up with a solution that we thought would protect the needs of both sides. So we call these injections. And so in the next slide, you'll see that students came up with the following after analyzing solutions. They said, oh, well, the university could reconstruct the current building, making it a workable classroom space. The university could build up the building, down, or around the building, but preserve a room inside the law school as a tribute to the author and famous historical figure. They could dedicate the room as a museum annex or a study room that displays maybe important remains from the author. The university could give honor using plaques and statues located in front of the law building. The university could gut the majority of the building but keep the original outward appearance. And then they thought, well, or they could name the school after Poe. Interestingly, this was such an engaging lesson to the students that they went home and researched that night. A couple of students stayed and did a couple of internet searches, and a site was located that gave an update on the New York University situation. And the site posted the following updates. Basically, there was litigation and a resolution that came to be that absolutely mirrored the student's solution to a T. Every bullet but one was honored. And the students were blown away that they were only 7th graders and could think that high level, that lawyers had to solve that, and they did it right there in their classroom. It was an extremely great exercise in critical thinking and team building and relying on each other to come up with the best ideas after analyzing a lot of assumptions that were being made. In the next slide, I started using the skills a little more broadly. I wanted to impact test scores. And this is something that I still try to do as an administrator. This was a second period class. This is a true story. They were 15 students that were the lowest of the low in reading comprehension proficiency. They were bored and unengaged. And I decided to try with them an ambitious target tool to see if I could tap into what some of their obstacles were from their perspective, not mine as a teacher or a supervisor of the class, but I decided to just ask them and see what they said and see if it gave me any clue as to how I could help or aid or unlock the bottleneck. Here's part of what they came up with. This is a partial list. The target was to raise reading test scores. Now, I had the students say out loud what their obstacles were to the standardized test that was given each year to measure their growth in reading. And I started writing them on the whiteboard as they verbalized. Here were 3. The students said, the test is too long. I get stuck and I can't remember the first paragraph. And then they said all the answers looked the same to them. So I taught them how to come up with an objective. If the test is too long, then what would be better than that? Or what would be the opposite of that? And they said, well, make it shorter. They didn't have to know how. That was just their idea. And then number 2, I get stuck and I can't remember the first paragraph. What objective might you have to overcome that? And they said, well, have reminders in the margins. And then all the answers look the same. What might an objective be to overcome that? And they said, well, maybe if we knew the differences between the choices. And then in this third column, they came up with an action plan to meet the objective. For example, okay, make the test shorter. We can't technically make it shorter, but what can we do? They said a plan would be to use a pencil to divide the passages into smaller parts, or chunking. Secondly, how do you have reminders in the margin? Well, they decided they were going to summarize after each section. So this process went on until we addressed every single obstacle that they had shared with me and verbalized. It was an amazing day that had the greatest impact in the scores that I've probably ever had in my career. Out of the 15, over a third of the students raised their reading level 2 grade levels. The rest raised them at least 1 grade level. I felt wonderful, and of course the confidence in the students that they can handle a high pressure testing situation with success stayed with them, I am sure, the rest of their life. So again, I want to reiterate, be curious. Wait. No matter what role you play right now, the best thing that you can be to yourself is to be curious. And ask yourself, what's blocking you? Or if you're working with someone, what's blocking you? How do you overcome it? What can you do? In the next example I want to share with you, I would like to share that there's some relationships now that I'm in as a principal that helps me to think in terms of TOC. Here are 2 of them. The top one represents a cafeteria manager that came to me, the principal, and she was very nervous because in retrospect, she really wanted me to change the way I controlled the number of students entering the cafeteria line. From my perspective, I only wanted to allow about 7 kids at a time through the line because I didn't want it to be chaotic or jumbled up. I wanted the workers to have space and calmness. She, on the other hand, wanted them to continuously flow through the line to the very last student is served within the first 10 or 15 minutes. After talking with her, I realized I was making an assumption that I was helping her by limiting the number of students in there only to realize through conversation and sketching out a conflict tree at my desk, kind of in front of me. She didn't know what I was doing, but I was, and I was trying to find out what her driving force was. What was her need? What was she trying to protect? And it was that she wanted to heat the food between the first lunch and the second lunch, and the second lunch and the third lunch, to serve hot, fresh food for the kids. So, of course, I was like, no problem. That was solved like that. But I had to really listen to her and not think to myself, she's trying to tell me how to do my job. I could have gotten defensive, but because I had this TOC critical thinking skills in my tool belt, I was able to think, what need is she trying to protect? And ask her those, critical questions that reveals a whole nother story than what I originally thought. And secondly, down here in the second column, I have also used as an assistant principal it with coworkers. These two workers here are obviously having a really good time. They're working in a close space together and seem very happy. How many times have any of you been in a situation where that's not the case? Working close together sometimes creates friction. And my principal left for a vacation, and here I was with an office staff just imploding on top of each other, so angry and bitter towards each other. And I couldn't understand why I had just started working there. But I called them each back into a workroom, and we worked through an ambitious target and looking at multiple perspectives, each individually, but then I shared some of the insights. The employees were in tears and so grateful that they did not understand the other person's perspective or how it was impacting the total office environment by the actions that they were taking. And so a result of that is they took ownership. They were kind. And quite honestly, it was great for me as a new assistant principal because they felt listened to, understood, and validated. Those three things are the three biggest results in every example of using the TOC tools. All people I've ever worked with over the last 3 years using those tools feels listened to, understood, and validated. Consider expanding learning and practicing the TOC skills. When you use these tools and use them in your circle of influence, those persons then become the beneficiaries of your practice. Those persons will feel your love through listening, understanding, and validating. And they will be impacted by the empowerment that you provide them in their future world where there is no one right answer. But being confident in knowing that you can rely on a system of thinking or processes that will discipline one to think critically is one to hang on to over the course of your changing roles in life. I know because I am that mother, and I am that employee, and I am that principal and that spouse, and I'm that daughter still. So join me in this practice, and I believe you will continue the ripple effect of a better future world. Pass it on. Thank you for having me. You are the most outstanding group of individuals. You are very, very important and influential in all the roles you play. I hope you have a wonderful conference. Thank you for inviting me.